Sometimes I read a book several years after it's already been published and I kick myself. I'm like, man, why did I wait so long to read this book? But sometimes that works out in my favor, as it did with Libba Bray's The Diviners. To explain that a little bit better, The Diviners takes place in 1926. The majority of the story takes place in Manhattan, New York City. The roaring 20s. We had flappers, everybody smoked, prohibition is in full swing. One of the character point of views that we get in this book is Memphis Campbell. Memphis loves reading. He wants to be a writer. He wants to write poetry among the greats. And some of those greats that he was influenced by talked about Langston Hughes, Walt Whitman, Jean Toomer, and one of my favorites, Zora Neale Hurston. And this is why I said I read this book at the right time for me. One of my favorite channels that I watch on BookTube, they've become personal friends of mine, the Codex Cantina. And over this past year watching their content, I've been exposed to a lot of material of Langston Hughes and Jean Toomer. So that just gave me an immediate feeling of excitement. It's like, oh, this is familiar to me. And of course, y'all know I love Zora Neale Hurston, so when her name was referenced, I just was about to die. It's the Zora Neale Hurston reference that gave me the most value. I have read all of Zora Neale Hurston's fiction work, and I've begun reading her nonfiction work. The first piece of her nonfiction that I read book-wise was Tell My Horse, which was a nonfiction account of when she went over to Haiti and Jamaica and studied their culture and went in depth, probably one of the most in depth into voodoo of anything that I have read. And it really came in handy for me because another character, a secondary character in this book, is Blind Bill Johnson. And there were some voodoo gods rituals that were mentioned involving this character, one of them being Papa Legba. In any voodoo ritual, Papa Legba is the first and last spirit that's invoked because he stands at the crossroad and he is the one who grants permission or denies those that want to talk to the gods. And sometimes he's a messenger to the gods. You can give him a message and he'll take it to whomever it is you're wanting to get that message to. And so I've really gotten off on a tangent, but that's why this was the perfect time for me to read this book, because it was just a few months ago that I read Tell My Horse. So that really enriched my reading enjoyment, and it also showed me how far Libba Bray researched. She went in deep on her research, not only in regards to voodoo, but as far as the speech of that time, the slang, the lingo, the style of dress, how New York operated, how it looked. It was phenomenal. It was just a great historical read for just that alone. I was hooked in the first chapter because a group of teenagers, they're having a party, they're drinking alcohol, it's prohibition, they're not supposed to. They pull out a Ouija board, they go to playing with it, they bring back a spirit called Naughty John. Libba Bray's description of that spirit coming back and just the atmosphere changing of New York was amazing. I was excited, but I was also going, holy crap, this is gonna be dark. The title of the book, the series, The Diviners. What are the diviners? Who are the diviners is actually the more appropriate question. And I actually took a quote from the book that describes who they are perfectly. We are the diviners. We have been and we will be. It is a power that comes from the great energy of the land and its people, a realm shared for a spell, for as long as is needed. We see the dead. We speak to restless spirits. We walk in dreams. We read meaning from every held thing. The future unfolds for us like the navigator's map, showing seas we have yet to travel. The diviners must stand or all shall fall. So in this book, the first of the series, I believe there's 4, we meet some of these diviners as they have come into powers or they've had them for a while. They keep it a secret. I mean, this is the 1920s. There's no telling what would happen if they said anything. But it seems that the diviners get their powers when there is a great evil that has come into play, which is the case with the teenagers in chapter 1. It's also talked about in the book description. They reawaken the spirit of serial killer Naughty John. And I am just, oh my goodness, this was such a fantastic, fun read. I loved all of the characters. And another thing that I need to stop and mention, this is much better as an audiobook. If you are a fan of audiobooks, I highly recommend getting the audiobook. January Lavoie is amazing. She really raised the bar on audiobook narration for me. She was this whole cast of characters, men, women, girls, spirits, youngsters. She could do it all. My two favorite voiced characters she did is little Isaiah Campbell and chorus girl Theta Knight. Oh my gosh, she just did them wonderful. I would never in a million years be able to tell that was not an 8-year-old boy talking when she did Isaiah. You know, or Theta Knight, the chorus girl dancer. She just really had that smoky, sultry sound to her voice. It was outstanding. There were times where there were bits of songs that were sung, and it was just, she is amazing. A one-woman show. I can't sing her praises enough. I did start reading this physically first, and then my audiobook hold through the library came through, and I was able to immersion read, and there was no way I was going to just physically read at any point after that. I had to have January Lavoie reading it with me. The atmosphere was just there. It was there. You know, plus you have the whole danger that was involved with Prohibition. People were still drinking and having parties. We had speakeasies popping up in secret, and just any time they can be busted up by the cops. I mean, I was just living for it. There was danger everywhere. Libba Bray's writing just, it was so good. She had some great descriptions. There were several paragraphs I just went back to reread 2 or 3 times because it was just so good. She explained things very well. I was able to follow. Overall, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. So if you haven't read this one yet, but you like historical fantasy, you know, or if you like books about the occult, I think you would really enjoy this one. Again, I cannot recommend the audiobook enough. I'm going to continue the series, and I'm absolutely not going to do it until I can get my hands on the audiobooks from my library. So yes, while I was late reading this book, getting started on this series, and joining the Libba Bray fan club, it was actually written in 2012. So not only did I enjoy a new book, find a new author that I liked, I also have a fun memory of it was the first book that I vlogged for my patrons. So lots of fun things tied to this book. A lot of folks said that the second book in the series is actually their favorite, so I'm looking forward to seeing if that works out for me as well. So stay tuned, subscribe if you're not already. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you in the next one.